Welcome back. Let's continue our discussion on evaluating fractions. This is the second video in the series, and this video has about 4 or 5 problems. So without further delay, let's get started. Simplify the expression. X squared divided by y raised to the power negative 3 multiplied by x raised to the power negative 1 divided by y cubed. There's probably more than one way to solve this problem. The way I'd recommend you solve it is you see two terms within each bracket, right? Convert the negative exponents into a positive exponent, which means every term in the whole problem is positive now, so it's easier to solve the problem. So let's go ahead and solve it. So we have x squared over y raised to the power negative 3 multiplied by x raised to the power negative 1 divided by y cubed. What I was saying was, instead of having it this way, let's convert it as x squared times. When you take a negative exponent from the denominator into a numerator, it becomes positive. So y to the negative third becomes y raised to the power plus 3, okay, divided by 1. Because there's nothing in the denominator now. Similarly, when you take a negative exponent that's in the numerator to the denominator, it becomes positive as well. So it's 1 because there's nothing in the numerator now. We leave a 1 there, and y cubed times x. So now let's multiply the two terms. So x squared times y cubed divided by 1 over y cubed times x. So the y cubed cancels out. So it's essentially x squared over x and x. Isn't that simple? All right. Now I converted my negative exponents into positive because I'm a positive person. I prefer things to be positive. So you could convert the exponents all into negative and then do the same math. But again, it may still pose some trouble for some of you. So it's easier if you convert them to positive exponents. All right, let's go to the second problem. The second problem is pretty much straightforward. All you have to do is substitute the value of 5 in place of x, solve the problem, and then as we get to the last portion of the problem, I'll tell you what to do as far as rounding your answer to the nearest 100. Okay, so simply substitute value of 5 in place of x. So it's 5 cubed minus 2 times 5 squared minus 3 times 5 plus 5 divided by 5 times 5 plus 3. It's 65 over 28. How do I know it so fast? Well, I solved all these problems before I started recording this session, so that's how I remember it. So it's 2.321. They only want the answer to the nearest 100. So that means we don't need the 1, which leaves us with 2.32 as our final answer, right? All right, let's continue. Mary walked to school at an average speed of 2 miles per hour and jogged back along the same route at an average speed of 6 miles per hour. If her total traveling time was 1 hour, what was the total number of miles in the round trip? So assuming A is Mary's home and B is her school, whether she walked or jogged, she covered the same distance. So if X were the distance between A and B, B to A must also have the same distance, right? Because distance remains the same because they said along the same route, right? Now, in terms of time, let's assume T1 is the time for walking and T2 is the time for jogging, okay? That means the total time taken between A and B is T1 plus T2 is 1 hour, right? So T2 equals 1 minus T1, right? I'm just shuffling it around so I can solve the problem, right? Now we know for fact speed equals distance over time. Let's solve the problem 2 times, one for walking, one for jogging. So while Mary was walking, our speed was 2 miles per hour, our distance is x, and the time taken is t1, right? Because we said walking is t1. And when Mary jogged back from school to our home, it's 6 miles per hour, distance is x, and this time is t2. We can now substitute, t2 with 1 minus t1, right? Which translates to 6 minus 6t1 equals x, right? Similarly, 2t1 equals x. Because distance is the same, we can now equate the two time, which implies 2t1 equals 6 minus 6t1, right? So if we take 6 out of here, it's 1 minus t1 equals 2t1. So that's 3, right? So it's 3 minus 3t1 equals t1. If you take this side, it becomes 4t1 equals 3. So t1 equals 3 over 4. That's the time it's taken for her to walk from home to school, right? We now know t1. What's t2? t2 is 1 minus t1. So it's 1 minus 3 over 4 is 1 over 4, right? Isn't that right? Okay. So what was the total number of miles in the round trip? Well, we now know the individual times, right? Now let's go ahead and actually substitute the time and the speed into the speed equals distance times time, figure out the distance so we can calculate the total distance, right? So let's do for walking. So when she walks, she walks at a speed of 2 miles per hour to cover a distance of x, and the time taken is 3/4, right? So it's 2 times 3/4 equals x. That's essentially 6/4, right? That's essentially 3 over 2. Okay, that's our walking distance. Okay, and because it's the same route, right? And so let's do 6 times 1 over 4, right? Equals x as well, right? So that's essentially 2, 3 over 2, right? Right? I applied, this is for jogging. So our distance is 3 over 2 plus 3 over 2. So 2 is a common factor. So it's 6. So it's 3. So the total distance is 3 miles. Again, this is how I would have solved the problem had I encountered it on a test. There's probably another way to solve the problem. And if you know of an alternative way, please put your comments in the description box below. So let's go to the next problem. So we have cosine x equals 1 over sine x, secant x equals 1 over cos x, and cot x equals 1 over tan x. Simplify sine x squared times cosine x times cot x, right? Now, let's go ahead and solve the problem. It's very simple. So let's retain the sine x squared as it is, right? So sine x squared times cosine x is 1 over sine x times cot x is 1 over tan x, right? But we can cancel out sine x, right? So tan x is sine x over, so we'll leave the cot x here for now. Well, we have tan x, we can cancel out sine x, right? So tan x is sine x over cos x. Cot x is 1 over tan x, right? That's essentially 1 over 1 over sine x over cos x, right? So that's essentially 1 over 1 times cos x over sine x, right? So that's cos x over sine x is cot x, right? So now let's go ahead and substitute this expression in place of cot x. So it'll be sine squared x times 1 over sine x times cos x over sine x, right? So the 2 sine x cancels out. So the answer is cos x. Again, the reason I think they gave the problem is to establish this idea that we talked about. in the previous problems, okay? All right. If 3x equals 12, y over 4 equals 10, 4z equals 9, what's the value of 10xyz over xy? Okay. What we can do is simplify the x even further. We have 3x equals 12, so we know x equals 4. Y power 4 equals 10, so y equals 40, right? 4z equals 9, so z equals 9 over 4, right? So what is 10 xyz over xy? Well, you don't need to even try too hard. I did this, so I thought maybe the problem could pose me a little bit of trouble, but the fact of the matter is xy cancels out straight away, which leaves us with just z, and we know z is 9 over 4, so 9 times 4. This is 2, 5, so it's 45 over 2. It's very simple, isn't it? All right, if x equals half, y equals 2/3, then which of the following is equal to 2 over x plus y? I purposefully didn't show the choices, so you're forced to work the problem out. So first you want to do is solve what is x plus y. X plus y is 1 over half plus 2 over 3. So the common factor here is 6, so it's 3 plus 2 times 2 is 4, so it's 7 over 6. We know x plus y is 7 over 6. So what is 2 over 7 over 6? Like I said, provide an imaginary number of 1. So 2 over 1 over 7 over 6 equals 2 over 1 times 6 over 7. So that is 12 over 7. Isn't that simple? All right, let's continue. We have 2 more problems and then we move on to the next video. So if w equals, find the value of w if w equals 1/3 plus y squared and y equals 1 over 9. Okay, it's very simple. All you have to do is substitute the value of y into this expression. Okay, 1/3 plus 1 over 9 squared, right? So the common factor here is 9. So it's 3 plus 1, which is 4 over 9 squared. So that's essentially 16 over 80. That's it. Very simple, isn't it? All right, let's wrap up this video. So 7 over 12 minus 7 power 12 minus 7 power 10 divided by 7 power 11 minus 7 power 9. The common factor in this is 7 power 10. So it'll be 7 squared minus 1. And here it's 7 to the power 9. So it'll be 7 squared minus 1. The 7 squared minus 1 cancels out. 7 power 10. We know it's 7, but I want to show you how you could do the problem because there's a math behind it. So it's 7 times 7 to the negative 9. So 7, 10 minus 9 equals 7 or 1. So 7. Let's write it this way. Okay. All right, that wraps up this video on on evaluating fractions. I'll see you with another video with more problems on the same concept. All right, so stay tuned. And if you learned something, please subscribe to my channel. Please share the video with your family and friends. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.